Zombie Reddit, today's story is...
My husband chose his mother after 2 years of marriage, the devastating secret that forced me to pack my bags in 5 minutes and never look back. Hello everyone. I, Lailani, 33 female, have been married to my husband Danny, 33 male, for 2 years. Our marriage has been stable with a few exceptions. One of the main problems is Danny's mother, Camilla, 53 female, who has never accepted me. From the beginning, she let me know that she didn't like me and that I wasn't good enough for her son. About a year ago, Camilla lost her job and was unable to find another one. She quickly exhausted her savings and was left with no resources. Danny insisted that I should be a good wife and allow his mother to live with us. I hesitated at first, but how could I refuse? The alternatives were to send her to a home or leave her homeless, and I didn't want to be seen as the villain in that situation. However, it soon became clear that this living arrangement would not work. From the moment she moved in, she began to criticize everything I did. If I made dinner, she would tell me it wasn't made the way she used to cook it for Danny. If I cleaned the house, she would complain that I used the wrong products or ignored areas she considered important. She behaved as if I were an incompetent housewife with no idea how to run a home, even though Danny and I had lived perfectly well before she arrived. She also started to take over everything. My kitchen suddenly became her territory. She went through my cupboards and reorganized everything according to her preferences. I couldn't find anything anymore. My spice rack was disorganized, and she discarded some of my favorite ingredients because she didn't like their aroma. When I confronted her about it, she acted as if I were ungrateful for her help. Then came the unsolicited parenting advice, even though we don't even have children. Every time she saw me spending time with Danny, she would sigh loudly and say things like, "A real wife would have already given my boy a child?" She dropped hints at family gatherings asking when I would have a grandchild, implying that I was the reason we hadn't started a family yet. She even tried to set up meetings for Danny with her childhood friends who had children, saying, "Maybe this will inspire you too," and not to mention the laundry situation. She took care of our washing, which initially seemed like a kind gesture, but quickly became a problem. She would wash my delicates with Danny's heavy work clothes, ruining some of my favorite pieces. Danny, she had the audacity to blame me for buying cheap fabrics. She even started folding our underwear and putting it in separate drawers. It was invasive and uncomfortable. Privacy became a thing of the past. She would enter our room whenever she wanted, claiming that she needed something. I had to start locking the door, and even then she would constantly knock if she needed something. Once she came in while I was getting dressed and had the nerve to act offended because I was undressed in my own room. She also had opinions about everything I bought. If I came home with new clothes, she would make fun of me, saying something like, "Spending your husband's hard-earned money." If I ordered takeout after a long day at work, she would make passive-aggressive comments about how lazy I was for not wanting to cook. The worst part? Danny never really stood up for me. She would just let it go and say things like, "That's just how she is," or "She doesn't mean it." It got to the point where I dreaded going home. I started staying late at work just to avoid seeing her. I found excuses to run unnecessary errands just to have a moment of peace. My home no longer felt like my own. It was like living in someone else's house, walking carefully so as not to set off the mine that was my mother-in-law. And to top it all off, she acted like the queen of the house. She took over the living room, choosing what she wanted to watch on TV and turning up the volume. If I wanted to watch something, she would sigh dramatically and say, "I guess I can go to my room if you really don't mind my entertainment." She even took my favorite blanket, the one I've had for years, claiming it as her own, saying it was too good to be wasted on me. Every time I tried to set boundaries, she acted like I was attacking her. She would get emotional and run off with Danny, making me look like the bad guy. And, as expected, Danny would say, "Just try to get along with her, honey. She's having a hard time." I was reaching my limit, but what could I do? She had nowhere else to go. I tried talking to Danny, but when it comes to his mother, he turns a blind eye. I don't know what power she has over him, but he simply can't see how inappropriate her behavior is, and it's starting to seriously affect me. Every time I try to explain how I feel about Camilla's treatment of me, Danny minimizes it. He says I'm being too sensitive or that I should be more patient with her, especially as she's going through a difficult time, but nothing changes. He continues to take her side, and I feel like I'm the one who has to put up with all her rudeness. It's becoming unbearable. However, Camilla crossed the line last week, and I think that was my breaking point. You see, Danny and I have been trying for a baby. It's something we were really looking forward to, but a few months ago I did get pregnant and we were so excited. Unfortunately, I had a miscarriage last month. It was a really difficult period for me, and I was still trying to process it when Camilla moved out. I wasn't prepared to face much and felt like I didn't have space to grieve properly. I tried to stay strong, but I was exhausted, emotionally drained, and just didn't feel like myself. Last week, I had a particularly long and difficult day at work. I came home hoping to at least receive some comfort from Danny and maybe have a quiet moment to myself. But when I walked in, Danny and Camilla were sitting at the table having dinner together. There was no food for me. I was starving and was really hoping for a hot meal, but there was nothing. I went into the kitchen and asked Danny, "Is there any food left for me?" He just looked at Camilla and said nothing. And then Camilla spoke up, saying, "Well, I didn't know when you were going to get home, so I didn't prepare anything for you." I couldn't believe it. I was too tired to argue, so I just took some bread and jam from the kitchen and went to bed. I was annoyed, but I didn't have the energy to say anything else. All I wanted was to rest and not think about how my life seemed to be falling apart. But I didn't even manage that. Next morning, I woke up still feeling exhausted. I went downstairs hoping for a moment of peace and a good cup of coffee, just to regain strength for the day, but of course Camilla was already up and sitting at the kitchen table. I started drinking my coffee, hoping she would just leave me alone, but then I heard her muttering about how coffee is bad for your health. By that point, I had had enough. I was already tired, hungry, and irritated. I tried to ignore it, but then she said something that made me explode. She told me that I never listened to anyone, and that's why I had a miscarriage. I was petrified for a second, unable to believe what I was hearing. I couldn't believe she would say something so cruel, especially considering everything I had been going through. I was still processing the loss, trying to heal emotionally, and there she was, blaming me for something completely out of my control. I was in shock. I just couldn't let it go. I asked her, "What do you think you're doing? What right do you have to talk to me like that?" She looked at me calmly and said, "I can talk to you like that because you're the reason I don't have a grandchild yet." That was it. That was the moment I exploded. I was so angry I could feel my blood boiling. I told her to shut up and stepped away for a moment to regain my composure, but I was seething. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't want to scream, but I couldn't hold back any longer. I wanted to tell her how hurtful and disrespectful she was, how much she was pushing me to the limit, but I didn't know where to start. Of course, Danny heard the shouting. She came down to see what was happening. I told her exactly what Camilla had said. I was trembling, trying to keep my voice steady, but I was furious. I just wanted her to see how inappropriate it was, how completely out of order her mother's behavior was. And then Danny said I should just ignore her because she's old and wants a grandchild. She said I should understand that she's upset and wants to be part of our lives, and that I should just let her talk like that because she's my mother. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was as if he was telling me that my feelings didn't matter, that Camilla's feelings and desires were more important than anything I had been through. It felt like a slap in the face. I had just experienced the most painful thing in my life, and he was on his mother's side instead of supporting me, his wife. He wasn't even trying to defend me or tell him that what he said was wrong. He was just saying, "She's older, she wants a grandchild, you should let it go." I was fed up, I couldn't take it anymore. I said to him, "If that's how you feel, then maybe you should leave me because I can't get pregnant again." The words came out before I could stop them. I didn't mean it, but it just came out in the heat of the moment, and the worst thing was that it was true. I couldn't get pregnant again. I packed my bags, took my things, and left the house. I didn't even know where I was going, but I couldn't stay there. I couldn't stay in a place where I felt so disrespected and unloved. I felt like Danny had chosen his mother over me, and that was something I couldn't accept. So I left and ended up at a friend's house. Now I'm sitting here, still trying to decide what to do next. I never wanted to hurt Danny, but I was so angry and hurt by what he and his mother were doing. Maybe I shouldn't have said that I couldn't get pregnant again like that and should have waited for the right moment, but I was at my limit. I had tried to explain my feelings and nothing had changed. So here I am. I ask myself, am I the one in the wrong for what I did? I know I'm angry, but was it too much to leave like that? Did I overreact? I feel like I'm in the wrong, but at the same time, I just couldn't continue to let Camilla walk all over me and Danny ignore it. What do you think? Update 1. Hi everyone. First of all, thank you for all the comments on my last post. Many of you called me wrong for not telling Danny earlier about not being able to get pregnant, and I want to try to clarify a few things. I understand where you're coming from, and I definitely understand why you would feel that way, but honestly, it's a lot more complicated than it probably seems. The truth is that I needed time to process everything before talking to Danny about it. I mean, how do you bring up that topic? It's not an easy thing to say, and I wasn't prepared to tell him when I found out. I found out that I couldn't get pregnant again less than a week before Camilla moved out. It was too much to handle, and I was still trying to understand how I was supposed to move on. I felt like my world had completely turned upside down. And then, on top of that, Camilla moved out. I don't know if it makes sense, but I was completely overwhelmed and didn't know how to process it all, let alone talk to Danny about it. But yes, I understand now that I shouldn't have said what I said to Danny, especially in front of her. I was so angry at the time that I let it all out. I know that wasn't the right way to handle it, and I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt anyone, but I honestly didn't know how to deal with everything, especially with her in the house. Then, after everything that happened, Danny called me 2 days ago. He was upset and I could hear it in his voice. But I was still too angry to talk to him. I told him I would send him a message when I had calmed down and could have a real conversation. I needed space to think about everything and I wasn't ready to say anything I would regret. This morning, I finally called him. I had been thinking a lot and I was ready to talk, even if it was going to be difficult. He came to see me at my friend's house. I wasn't sure what to expect, but we sat down and started talking. I explained exactly what the doctor had told me about not being able to get pregnant again. And when I did, he asked me why I hadn't told him before. He was hurt and confused, and I could see it in his eyes. It hurt me too, but I knew this was something I had to explain. I told him the truth. I didn't want to burden him with this when everything with his mother was already so complicated. I knew how important it was for him to have a baby, and I wasn't sure how to tell him that I couldn't give him that, especially with Camilla already living with us. The moment just felt terrible. I didn't want to introduce something like this while dealing with her constant presence in our home. I didn't know how to talk to him about this and deal with her simultaneously. It seemed impossible. At first, he remained silent for a moment. Then he told me he understood. I'm not sure if he was just trying to be understanding or if he was really processing it all, but I appreciated that he was trying to understand. I needed him to understand, especially since everything with Camilla had been so difficult. But then I told him something that I knew would be hard for him to hear. I told him that I wouldn't come home until Camilla left. I was firm. I didn't want to continue with this situation. I felt I had tried every alternative and nothing changed. I needed him to choose. It was her or me. I was fed up of living in a home where I felt suffocated, disrespected, and constantly belittled. I couldn't go on like this. I didn't want to be the bad guy, but I knew I had to draw this line for my own sanity. Of course, Danny didn't take it well. He said I couldn't just throw his mother out on the street. I understand. I really do. I know Camilla is his mother and he's trying to be a good son, but I couldn't tolerate it any longer. I told him that if he really cared about me, he would have to make arrangements for her. It was time for a change, and I wasn't going back to a life where I felt I had no voice in my own home. He left. We haven't spoken since. I haven't heard from him, not even a message. I don't know what he's thinking, and honestly, I'm scared. I'm scared that he'll choose her over me, that he'll think I'm being unreasonable, but I also feel that I can't keep sacrificing my happiness for his mother's comfort. I've already put up with so much for so long, I'm at my limit. I keep going over all the things I said, wondering if I could have handled it better. I didn't want to hurt Danny, but I couldn't go on living like this. I feel guilty for leaving, but I also feel it was the only way to make him see how serious this situation was. I hope he comes to his senses and realizes that I'm not asking for too much. I just need space, respect, and a chance to heal, but at the moment I'm not sure what's going to happen. So yes, this is where I am now. I don't know what's next, but I just wanted to update you on what happened after my last post. Thanks for all the support and comments, even if it was hard to hear. I guess I just need to figure out how to move forward, whatever that may be. Update 2. Hi everyone. I know it's been a month since my last update, but honestly, it's been an emotional roller coaster. I needed time to process everything and determine my current situation. After Danny left my friend's house, I stayed with her for a while, and it was really nice to have some peace and quiet. It gave me a chance to just breathe and reflect on everything that had happened. I had to ask my friend to come to my house to pick up some of my belongings, like clothes and personal items. I wasn't ready to go back there yet, and I needed her to help me with that. However, when my friend went to the house, things didn't go well. Camilla was there, and, as expected, she was not happy. She started yelling at my friend, telling her to take everything she could quickly because she wasn't planning on leaving anytime soon. I couldn't believe it. Camilla was acting like she owned the place, still trying to control everything, even though I wasn't even there. My friend was really uncomfortable, but she got what she needed without confronting Camilla. I was so frustrated that Camilla thought she could still behave like that. Meanwhile, Danny and I were on the phone trying to figure out our next steps. It was very difficult to have these conversations with him. We were both upset, but we were also trying to work together. After long conversations and many discussions, we finally decided that the best thing for everyone was to rent Camilla a small studio or one-bedroom apartment where she could live independently. Danny and I both have good jobs, so money wasn't an issue. It seemed like a reasonable solution. She would have her own space, and I would get mine back, which was what I needed. But, as you might expect, it wasn't that simple. When we spoke to Camilla about the plan, she was not at all happy. She started crying every night, saying she couldn't believe that her own son was doing this to her. It was heartbreaking for Danny. You could tell. He was torn between his mother and me, and every time she cried, he seemed to lose a part of himself. It was really difficult to witness, but I also knew that I couldn't just let him stay at our house. I had already given in too much. I couldn't continue living in a space where I felt suffocated. We started looking for apartments together, and Danny and Camilla would visit them while I kept my distance. Honestly, I didn't want to be around her. I couldn't deal with her constant negativity and refusal to accept the situation. Every place they visited, Camilla found something wrong with it. The kitchen was too small. The bathroom wasn't good enough, or she didn't like the color of the walls. It seemed like she wasn't even trying to make this work. I couldn't believe it. She was so demanding, but at the same time, she wasn't willing to leave the house and give us space. Honestly, I was starting to feel like she just didn't care about anything except staying with us. I have made it very clear to Danny that I don't want to see Camilla during this process. I have told him that I will not get involved in any of this because every time I am around her, I just feel like things get worse. It's like she is intentionally pushing all my limits, and I can't handle it anymore. Danny has been understanding up to a point, but I can see that it is difficult for him too. He wants to make everyone happy, but I think he's starting to realize that it's impossible to please us both simultaneously. So, this is our current situation. We've been looking for places for Camilla, and the process has been prolonged because she refuses to accept any option. I'm starting to wonder if she'll ever agree to move out, or if she'll continue to manipulate Danny into letting her stay with us. I can't even imagine how this will play out from here, but the only thing I know is that I need space, and I need her to be out of our lives for good. I can't continue living in a situation where I constantly have to be cautious. It's been difficult. There's still a part of me that feels sorry for Camilla, but there's a bigger part that just wants peace in my own home. I have tried to be patient, really, but at this point, I'm not sure how much more I can take. I love Danny, but I also need to look after myself. I don't know how all this will turn out, but I hope things will get better soon. I will keep you updated as the situation progresses. Thanks again for all the support and advice. It really means a lot to me. Update 3. Hi everyone. It's been about 4 months since my last update, and I know many of you have been wondering how it all turned out. I finally have some news to share. I've really been doing a lot of reflecting, and it seems like Time has flown by, although these months have felt like an emotional roller coaster. After weeks and weeks of apartment hunting, Camilla finally accepted a place. It was a small studio about 10 minutes from our house. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't particularly love the location, but at that moment I was simply relieved. We had a solution. It wasn't ideal, but I accepted it as a compromise. I didn't want to keep arguing about it. The important thing was that she was going to have her own space, and it seemed that at least she agreed to move out, although I didn't feel totally comfortable with the proximity. I'm sure many of you are wondering if I forgave Camilla or if things improved, but that's not really the case. I made it very clear to Danny that even though Camilla was moving in, that didn't mean she could just show up whenever she wanted. I told her clearly that she wasn't welcome in our house without an invitation, and if he wanted to see her, he could visit her at her house. I was very firm on this because I needed my space. I needed things to go back to normal for Danny and for me. And having her constantly in our lives was never going to be part of that plan. But let me tell you, Camilla didn't give up easily. After she moved in, she didn't just quietly go on with her life. No. She started using other tactics to try to get Danny to spend more time with her. She involved some family members, calling me and Danny, trying to make us feel guilty for letting him come home. She would say things like, "How can you be so cold to your own mother?" And, "I'm your only family, don't you care about me?" Honestly, it was exhausting. It didn't stop there. Camilla even tried to play the health card. She started calling Danny, telling her that her health was deteriorating and that she needed her care. She tried to make him feel guilty so that he would stay with her, saying that she didn't know how much time she had left. It was as if she thought that by acting like a victim, she would somehow manage to stay with us again. Honestly, it was exhausting, and I could see it was wearing Danny down. I had to remind her that she couldn't allow herself to be manipulated like that. It wasn't healthy for either of us, and the reality is that she needed to stand up for herself. I won't say it was easy, it was difficult, especially for Danny. She's a good person, and I could see how divided she was, but she stood her ground. She didn't give in, and eventually Camilla began to back down. It was as if she realized that she couldn't keep using these tactics to control us, and you know what? That was a relief. About a month ago, I finally moved back home. I'd been staying with a friend for a while, but I knew I needed to move back, especially as things with Camilla had calmed down a bit. I needed to get back into a normal routine. Returning was both a relief and a little strange. It was as if things were finally returning to normal with Danny, but there was still some lingering tension, especially because we hadn't completely resolved everything related to the possibility of having children. Speaking of which, Danny and I have been talking more about looking into surrogacy. I'm still not completely convinced, to be honest. It's a big step, and I'm not 100% sure if it's the right choice for us, but I've been giving it a lot of thought, and I know Danny is serious about it. We've had some deep conversations about what it would mean for us as a couple, and I can see how much he wants to start a family, but I'm also still processing everything that's happened in the last few months. It's a lot to take in, we're not rushing into anything, but it's something we're considering, and I'll keep you posted on our decision. So yes, this will be my last update. Things are quiet now, and I feel like we are on the right path, even if it is a bit uncertain. I just wanted to thank everyone for their support and advice during these months. You have all helped me process so much, and I have really valued your opinions. I hope that, whatever happens next, we can all move forward with more clarity and peace. Thanks again, and take care.